Okay, greetings everyone. Sayer here, along with Riza Islam, Dr. Christian Northrup, and Dr. Ben Tapper, and we are holding this live stream in order to really provide everyone an update on a case that we have filed in federal court here in Florida, which is essentially an effort to provide everyone with the opportunity to exercise their First Amendment rights, because we were disfavored actors as far as our speech being suppressed, vilified, and we weren't the only ones. We were just the ones that often, were to the issues first and had the loudest platforms at the time, warning people, for example, about the mRNA vaccine dangers before they were deployed. And because of that, they came after us very intensely. So, we've gone through years of this targeting, debanking, defamation, threats, you name it. And I'm proud to say that here with my my colleagues and friends, we are stronger now more than ever. And that's what this is actually about. And given the recent events of, Charlie Kirk being essentially politically assassinated for exercising his free speech in such a principled way without any intention towards violence, always trying to reconcile with those whose opinions he didn't agree with. That is what this is essentially about. So the timing of this event and the timing of us taking those who did everything in their power to shut down First Amendment rights and your ability to make informed medical choices, this is a time of reckoning, and this is why we're coming together. So we really want to include you in that. And I'd like to pass it on to you, Dr. Northrup.
What was so interesting to me, Sayer, is having been someone who benefited widely by mainstream media, by PBS, by Oprah, I was shocked by what happened so suddenly in 2020. And I have listened to a professor of organic chemistry at Cornell having a conversation with Tucker Carlson. And he said it had to be an AI-driven censorship campaign because it happened so suddenly. And I remember getting an email from the New York Times saying, why do you think that so many people on your Facebook page suddenly watched Out of Shadows? Remember Mike Smith's movie where he'd been a stuntman in Hollywood. And I happened to watch that movie on Good Friday of 2020. And it was an eye-opener for me. I didn't know about Mockingbird Media. I didn't know about Hollywood. I didn't know about any of it, but I did know from my career as a person in holistic medicine, I knew that the roads were littered with medical pioneers who had something to say that ran against the Rockefeller medicine sort of narrative, which is frankly, if you think Christianity is a big religion, you got to go for vaccines. That is the religion. And so I was never saying anything that I hadn't been saying for 40 years. And I was simply giving information, but I was noticing really weird things were happening in 2020. So that if I mentioned vitamin D, or if I mentioned that masks didn't work, it wasn't just, we don't agree with you. It was suddenly, we hate you and you're the devil incarnate. That's what was so shocking. And I don't know if it was my colleagues who were saying the nasty stuff, but all of my colleagues just fell away almost instantly. There were very few people who stood up for what was happening. They just sort of ran for the corners like cockroaches in the kitchen when you turn on the kitchen light. I found it astounding that suddenly a 40-year career with 3 New York Times best-selling books and all of that, I'm suddenly literally canceled. I didn't know what cancel culture was. I didn't know what any of it was, but I had for years and years. I had listened to someone like the vitamin C guy,
Dr. Andrew Paul?
Well,
No?
he was amazing. When
Yeah.
I first heard Dr.
Looks like her connection cut out a little.
We're
Oh, there you
sending
go.
tons of ascorbic acid to China because it cures everything. I mean, it cured polio, for heaven's sakes. And
Yeah.
so I'll never forget this, Sayer. I'm listening. And someone says, well, then why aren't we using it? He looks right in the camera and he says, Satan. I'll never, and I laughed. I'm not laughing anymore because I was brought to a little more knowledge, like Ephesians 6:12. We battle not against flesh and blood, but against powers of darkness that are not of this world. And I remember when I first read that, I'm at Rhema Bible College with the very first Clay Clark Reawaken America tour in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Now I'm an East Coaster, you know, I'm a Northeast, Yale, Harvard, Dartmouth, all of that. And I didn't know about these powers of darkness. I should have, but I didn't. And then most recently, we hosted Charlie Kirk here in Maine in Old Orchard Beach, one of his last public appearances, and I decided to go. I had never really heard Charlie Kirk. He came on stage once when I was at the Reawaken America tour, and I didn't get to meet him. And he was incredibly gracious and bold. And the first two rows were high school students and college students, and he was so personable. And then the next thing you know, he's gone. And even if, and I do want to say this because I've been sent all kinds of stuff about this is not what you think, it doesn't measure up. And it reminded me of the early YouTubes of the Biden administration, which looked like he was at Castle Rock Studios in Culver City. So I don't know all of what's going on. I do know this. The Matrix is a documentary. It's not a movie. And so today, as we're speaking, they're holding the memorial for Charlie Kirk. And the whole thing, everybody, is about free speech. Now, for me, I've been at the tip of the sword of tyranny, which is the injection. If we lose the right to determine what gets injected into our bodies or those of our children, there is no other right. And when Joe Latipo, the Surgeon General of Florida, just came out with that incredible statement that you don't need to give the evidence about vaccines or whether they work or don't. The issue is a moral issue. To lose the right to determine what gets injected into your body, it's slavery. It's slavery, pure and simple. And that was a sea change for me because I've testified 3 times in front of our legislature. I've given them, like all the other doctors, all the information. That doesn't actually change anything. What changes is you have a right to speak, and it is your moral right as a human being made in the image of God to determine what gets injected into your body. So we were targeted, all of us here, were targeted in such a clever and demonic fashion because none of us, not one of us in the whole Disinformation Dozen, was ever targeted for the truth of what we were saying. We were targeted because here's what they do. Linus Pauling won 2 Nobel Prizes in his work in biochemistry. And he says, what we're not up on, we tend to be down on. And we, unfortunately, rattled the chain of the monster of medical control and Rockefeller medicine. And during this whole thing, when we started Maine Stands Up, we were looking for a lawyer who would take the case that was being filed in a number of states by Tom Rentz. And here was the case. What's the cycle threshold at which you're running the PCR test? Because anything more than 24 is a false positive. Now, we all know with Corey Mullis died suddenly, as healthy as I am, in December of 2019. And we had a lawyer come to my house, and I said, "How is it that you're brave enough to take this case?" And here's what he said to me. "I represent victims of medical terrorism in Guatemala who were given syphilis by the US Public Health Service and the Rockefeller Foundation. And I represent those victims." He knew what was going on. Of course, we didn't know what lawfare was at this time. I mean, the case was thrown out immediately. Peter McCullough wrote the affidavit. I read the affidavit. I said, "Our governor doesn't have a chance." Boy, was I wrong. And so here we are, but the tide has now turned. I mean, literally, as we speak, they're celebrating the life of Charlie Kirk, whose conference, his thing is called The Turning Point. And here we are. And when I heard Jeff Childers on Coffee and COVID say, "If you Disinformation Dozen people don't have representation, I would like to represent you." Now, I already knew about lawfare, but I'll tell you what, this lawsuit that that we are doing is for people to see justice. We have to stand up. I am not doing this because I think we'll ever be awarded a cent. I don't care. I know that we have to speak truth to power. And I always have. And suddenly I had a whole logjam thrown in front of me for the first time in a long time. And I knew, oh, this is so much bigger than me. And unfortunately, I have to get over this, but I have an enormous amount of disdain for all of my colleagues who were in my court until this. And then just because if everyone had stood up at the beginning, this never would have happened. They all ran for the hills in order to protect their standing, their social cred, whatever. And and many of them never got the shot, but they didn't say anything. And so we are an intrepid group, and I am thrilled to be part of it.
Wow, thank you so much for that. So profound and so deep, and so everyone that I know in this group was advocating at this level from the beginning, because we couldn't not but tell the truth as we saw it.
Right.
And there's such coherence in our views. I mean, the moment they say they can penetrate our body, without our consent, then we are chattel, and it does directly connect to what Latifah said about slavery. So Riza, please feel free to jump in and give us your experience and perspective.
Absolutely. Well, the first thing I'll say is thank you to all of you for not being cowardly and running in the heat of battle, as Dr. Christiane Northrup was eloquently articulating, because that is something that a lot of people did. And the sad thing is, as she also said, this would have never happened. And that's actually the aftermath. That is the hindsight thing that occurs in every civilization at that point, where we look at the tyranny, we look at a tyrannical dictatorship, an oligarch, whatever type of government wants to take over a people. We always look at the after effect and the aftermath of, well, what if we just said no? What if we just stood up? What if we just came together, united, and said, this is wrong, we see it's wrong, and we're not going to go along with it? Well, at this point in history, I think we have read enough books, we have watched enough documentaries, we have seen enough things happen to where we don't need to do that again. This should be the last time where the people wholeheartedly believe what they're told. This should be the last time where people, whether they're in the medical field, whether they are educators, whether if they are in any type of arena, should wholeheartedly listen to something that comes down a pipeline from the federal government, and we are told, just do this and everything will be fine without question. We must question, and we must be willing to stand on integrity. So in my case, as one of those who are named Disinformation Dozen, I'll just tell you, when we first saw it on television, I believe it was Jen Psaki who was talking about us on national television and said, the president has given us a list, and 12 state attorney generals have come together, and we have determined these 12 people are the cause for over 65%. In some studies and some of the mentionings were saying over 75% of all misinformation, where shots, COVID, and all that are concerned, stem from just 12 accounts, just 12 people. And I said, wow, that's very interesting. Just 12? just 12. The entire internet, just 12 people. So automatically I said, well, either their math is messed up, or someone, I don't know, someone doesn't know what social media is or how it works or how many billions are on it, but just 12 people, fine. So my spiritual brain went into, well, we know about the 12 disciples. We understand what that means when people who stand against tyranny, evil, and wickedness, when they are targeted, they are ordained. They are the ones called. They are the ones who were looked at as being worthy to stand on the side of righteousness against evil and wickedness. So I actually appreciated that title after the initial anger and irritation that Dr. Northrup was saying as well. I said, let me step back and reassess and reevaluate this. So as one of those 12 information dozen, I would say 12 righteous soldiers who decide to stand against this government, it was very irritating to see that not only were we put in front of the world as being people who, number one, are sincere in what we do. That's the first thing. All right. It's not a group of people looking for a dollar. It's not a group of people looking for some notoriety somewhere. No, we were all accomplished in our careers, already doing very well, helping a lot of people, and in love with our passion. I know I am. I know every one of you are. So it was kind of a backhanded compliment to say things like that. These people are trying to get a dollar, or they're trying to gain some notoriety, or no, we're all human beings, good people who truly love humanity and want to help the people. Me from the Black community first, and then all human beings after. So I saw that, and then I also saw how they gave these outlines, and they said these 12 people are the reason why people are dying. They then started to go in that direction. Okay, now I said, now wait a minute. Okay, we know where this goes.
Yeah.
That we are killing people. Joe Biden, who uttered those words when he was the president at the time. And once you start to mislabel and you start to characterize a person in that type of arena, now you get the people who are massively ignorant, who don't know, who don't read, who just go along with what the dominant governmental body is saying, to where they start to kind of get manipulated and say, wait a minute, they're killing people? Oh my God, these 12 people, we have to stay away from them. We have to shun them. We have to stone these people when we see them in public. That's something that we all went through. And that is I would say the worst part about it is because the few who listened to them were so vehemently passionate in their opposition to us. I know specifically in my community, a number of people in the Black community became so ignorantly emboldened where they thought they were doing right by pushing against me, or being right by talking against me in the public. And they said, well, Reza, you guys shouldn't listen to him. I mean, there were comedians, there were actors, there were athletes, big names, very big names, who were in the Black community because they ran with what they heard. And although I did not, respectfully, I didn't crush them, because I could have done that, because I saw what they didn't see. And that's the thing we all had to battle with. We may have had family, colleagues, friends who turned against us, and because of we understood where it came from, we didn't retaliate, because we know they thought they were acting in good faith and that they thought they were doing the right thing. So there was a lot that we went through. And I know, again, on my end, I'll just say I'm honored to see others who did not quit, and we are still here. It is now 5 years later, and everything we said turned out to be true. And although we didn't want that to be the case, here it is. And I'm very thankful to the attorneys and the legal team who stepped up and said we will, represent them in this case. And again, I'm just honored to know all of you, and to see that you are still pushing strong, and that we're still doing what needs to be done for the people. And God willing, we will win this fight, because I would say about 70% of all the data that we were talking about is now, made public. So it won't be hard.
So well said. Thank you so much, Dr. Tapper.
Yeah, Sayer, thanks for putting this together. Riz, I love your story, and Dr. Northrup, just love your heart and all of this. And it's just surreal to be sitting here having this conversation with you guys. And and I still think it's surreal to even be on that list. It's comical. I think, Rizzo, you said 65 to 70% of the so-called misinformation on vaccines. I don't know about you, but I was like, dang it, I was shooting for 100%. But it's that's the reality of it. But it's just comical to me, and it's just the battle at hand that we're in. All of these, the Disinformation Dozen, the slogan, and all these bumper sticker slogans, the science is settled, and it's just these are slogans designed with a psychological intent to discredit and discourage and really to slander. And that's what this is about. This isn't about which is right and wrong or vindication. This is really a fight spiritually, good versus evil, and that's what this is about. For many years, I was putting on lectures on the National Battle Reporting System. It was in 2008 when I sat in a lecture on the data collection of the CDC, which is the NVRS, and the doctor was talking about how they are manipulating data around influenza, and how 90% of the deaths occur with comorbidities, and they're on 13 plus medications, and the media takes those numbers and say, look, 80,000 people die of the flu every year. But really, truth be told, there's actually a lot more that goes into that than what the public is led to believe. And so I would put on lectures about that, and I used to have to buy people dinner to come listen to me. Hey, I'll buy you salmon to come hear you talk about the manipulation of data. Nobody really cared. But when COVID hit, it really it created the soil for truth to really sprout. And really people were just coming all over the woodwork to really hear me and you guys speak. And Thomas Jefferson stated, "One man with the courage is a majority." And I like to think that Rizza, you tied spiritually the 12 disciples. I mean, I'm thankful to hear those words, and gosh, it's like God, I think, really gave us all a voice in this fight, and really, I didn't ask for it. I know you didn't ask for this title, but like Rizza said, I'm almost thankful now to have that title. But again, there was a lot of backlash. We were severely persecuted. I mean, I'm out in the woods here at my home, and people broke into this home. We promoted that we were going to be in Hawaii at the Aloha Freedom Coalition. I was there for 2 days, and people, I promoted my social media. My social media prior, I think Jen Psaki called us out, and it might have been within a week or 2 weeks after Biden called us out. That's when I got deleted on my social media. And that's when my Instagram was at its highest followers, and we were reaching 3 to 4 million people a month. And then I got deleted. And then, I was promoting on that page that, hey, we're going to be in Hawaii. Well, I learned real quick, don't do that, because people, obviously there's some crazy people in the world. And they broke into my home. They vandalized my clinic and vandalized my truck. They, we've had threats and you name it. I know you guys were all persecuted too, but, Scripture says that blessed are those who are persecuted for righteousness' sake. And, and that's really what this is about. And, I know all of us have that conviction to speak out, to speak boldly, because, we know people are suffering. We know people are being harmed by the information being pushed here. And really what this fight, to me, in this lawsuit is really to battle against the crimes against humanity and the people that are guilty in this whole thing. I mean, just look at the hearings. I know Sayer was present there at the hearings of the CDC. I mean, it was comical to me to listen to these people, the former head of the CDC saying, hey, this is all about transparency. We're trying to bring trust back to people. I'm like, okay, but she would not even admit who her attorneys are. Their attorneys were handing her papers with notes on it, whispering in her ear. And one of the senators said, hey, who are those people? I used to be a former attorney general, and I used to be a judge. It's not uncommon to list and to announce who your attorneys are, but she was afraid to do so. And, to me, that just raises more suspicion. But again, at the end of the day, truth prevails. And I know full well that we are on the right side of history. We're on the right side of truth. And I'm just honored to be sitting down with you guys.
Amazing. Well, for those who are not fully aware, there is also the fact that our HHS secretary, RFK Jr., was put on the list, and it was very well orchestrated strategy, obviously, to target him due to the concerns that he would have a big impact as far as this advocacy goes, which is, of course, the inviolable right of informed medical choice and parental rights and medical choice generally. And he just had a bomb threat 2 days ago, right? And this is after an elaborate series of orchestrated, really influence operations that come not just from pharma, but you have the UK, of course, once again through CCDH and their network targeting, a democratically elected cabinet member with essentially the types of operations that were very prevalent during the Cold War.
Yeah.
And of course, the CIA has used these operations in foreign territories. And now we're seeing a lot of that deployed at home, the COVID-19 response being one example of that, and all of us having been put through the ringer with black operations. So this isn't academic, right? Like what happened to Charlie, what they are orchestrating around those who do speak up that threaten their dominant narrative, which is all they have anymore, right? The mainstream media has their Mockingbird, MK Ultra programming matrix, and that's what determines the majority of people's behaviors on this planet still. But that matrix has completely shattered. I think, Christian, as you've pointed out, we've witnessed it ourselves with this a profound turning point, with this turning of ages, where essentially globally now people are looking to the United States as their rock, to create their own sovereignty movement. I'm actually going to the EU, and I will be at the Parliament in October because they are creating their own movement that is inspired by the US. So there is this incredible opportunity, but the reality is that we have been targeted, and all Americans who try to express this basic civil right moving forward, unless we win in court, then there is no ultimate protection. Missouri Biden attempted. Unfortunately, the plaintiffs didn't have the standing that we have. That's why Bobby was added to that lawsuit, but it's petered out essentially, even though they ascertained that, yes, our speech was violated. It was against the Constitution. So this is from one of our lawyers, and these are pro bono lawyers. So keep that in mind. They haven't made a penny, and these are lawyers, right? So that's kind of like an oxymoron. But they are in this for the reasons that Christian mentioned. Is Jeff Childers is someone who cares about freedom, is willing to dedicate his time and energy to help everyone. So one of the lawyers shared this with me to share with you. He said, we are up against the highest powered law firms in the country representing Google, Meta, X. This case has a larger impact than the immediate damage the censorship regime inflicted on the Disinfo Dozen. That means this is relevant to everybody who's an American, right? And again, internationally, government coordinated suppression of free speech is a threat to us all, and we cannot let it happen again during the next emergency. And that's just it. We're already seeing them seed the narrative globally that there's going to be another pandemic.
Oh, yeah.
Right. So essentially, what people I think really need to understand here is that the way that this case is going to go, because it is in Florida, it is a federal, jurisdiction. This case, okay, it's Fifth Circuit, is that the big tech companies have already asked for delaying, so they can flip it into California, the jurisdiction where it can get slapped away.
Of course.
And the judge has already not given them that normal deference that these trillion-dollar companies have. So we already seeing indications that this case is going to move forward very quickly in October, November, but there is no budget. Like there's nothing. Like it's just the people who are looking to support it, which is one reason why we're doing this. This isn't for us. This is so our lawyers don't have to give their blood to, basically keep this fight going. So I want people to be aware of that. And then really quickly, for those who aren't aware, the case itself is really important. In fact, arguably, it's the first major civil rights case of the digital age that directly challenges the most sweeping government-directed censorship campaign in modern history. We had big tech and we had foreign organizations essentially launder free speech suppression. And I'm pretty convinced the Five Eyes network used the bilateral agreements to spy on us, because you can't do that on US citizens, but you can use the UK and then spy on US citizens. This happened to me personally. I've spent a lot of time in the UK lately. I have a loved one there, and I know for a fact that we've been targeted in a way that's very disturbing. So I want people to understand that this is actually about whether the Constitution exists or not for us in reality. And this is an opportunity for us to get declarative relief that essentially says, no, this is not allowed in the future. You cannot. So it's great to have executive orders. It's great to have promises of Zuckerberg, who kisses the ring at Mar-a-Lago. And yes, I haven't been banned in a while, but these are promises. We need to enshrine this in our constitutional rights and through a legal process. So that's why we're doing this. So anyone else can jump in on that.
Yeah, it's interesting. When I found out that the dark money component was a reality, that's when I said, oh, this is far, far larger in scope than we could have ever imagined. And the way they did it, as you mentioned, through that loophole by utilizing a third party in the United Kingdom versus in the United States, would allow them to do things in a way where it would justify heightened levels of surveillance. It didn't shock me, because we know multi-billion-dollar industry dealing with vaccines is something that is their golden cow. It's their golden calf. You just don't mess with vaccines. All right. Don't question it. Just take them, go along with it. Even doctors of the highest orders now, and immunologists and vaccinologists and epidemiologists, they are all now, large numbers of them have come out and talked about how devastated they are, including many of them who recommended to doctors and recommended to people to take the mRNA shots. And now that the data has come forth, many of them are talking about how they are devastated because they were a part of this circumstance where over 5 billion people on the planet took at least the first dose. So it's, again, that was the biggest part for me, is when we found out the source of the funding, because I was trying to figure out, who is this Center for Countering Digital Hate? Remember all these nice sounding words and titles, right? All that is a part of the manipulation, as Dr. Northrop was saying, The Matrix was and is a documentary for sure. And I said, Center for Countering Digital Hate. That sounds so lovely, right? It sounds so nice. Wow, we're countering digital hate. Well, the biggest way to hide behind evil is to name your organization something that is supposed to combat evil. So you're countering digital hate by funding it. Okay, so that was the first thing. Number two, I said, where's this organization based? The United Kingdom. What is the United Kingdom doing investigating citizens of the United States when it comes to the medical field? Okay, none of this makes any sense, and none of it made sense. But when we found out exactly how that is being connected and the money, and then this individual goes on a crusade, Ahmed, I believe is his name. Who's the CEO?
Imran Ahmed, yeah.
Imran Ahmed. I said, okay, he's going on these interviews and really crusading against us individually, just us 12. These 12 people. He started going down the names, and they're grifters, and they're killing people, and they should be thrown in jail. I said, he would never debate us.
Right.
No, they never do.
They never do. I said, that's how this was a hit. It was a hit, and it was a coordinated effort by wicked powers in our own government, along with wicked powers in the UK government, and I would argue even one or two other governments as well, to just do hit pieces on us in order to get the people to turn. And no, thankfully, it didn't work as well as they thought, because the people knew the truth. A good chunk of them, I would say, in the US knew. They saw the work of Dr. Ben Tapper. They saw Sarah G's work. They saw Dr. Christiane Northrop. They said, wait a minute, she's been on Oprah. Black folk, we saw that. All right. We were like, no, I'm just saying we've seen. So it's kind of like, you can't convince all of us. You can get some, but you can't get all the people to go along with it. So the beauty is, again, it's a poetic ending with a lot of tragedy, because, again, there's a lot of people who wished they listened to us.
That's very true.
I'm going to end it on that point there. There's a lot of people who have told me personally that they wish they would have listened. They
100%.
just really wish they would have listened. They called me crazy. They called all of us crazy. Some people apologized and said, Reza, I really thought you were crazy. I just thought you were. I thought, you were out here speaking with such passion, and you sounded great, but I thought you genuinely were out of your mind. And I took it. And now they're talking about their heart issues. They're talking about they lost both of their parents within months and who were perfectly healthy. I mean, you know, and I'm sure all of you have heard stories like this, but that's the biggest part for me is someone has to pay for the blood that is out here. They have to go to jail. They have to face these consequences. And then again, as Sarah G was saying, it has to be enshrined in law so that it doesn't happen ever again.
That's exactly right. I mean, how many people do we have with this epidemic right now of myocarditis, pericarditis? I mean, Dr. Northrop, I mean, you'd probably know better than me that how many people we would see on a regular basis in a physician's office with myocarditis. In a 30-year career, you might see 2 cases, 3 cases of myocarditis, and now it's so normalized, and it's due to the vaccine. I mean, it's, you know, and so we were right, and we are right in this scenario, and so it's just.
But it's fascinating if you think about it in the mainstream. So let me give you an example. You know, I'm saying to my brother today, you know, we now have 2 major studies. We have the study showing that the 10-year study of Paul Thomas, where vaccinated children are much sicker than unvaccinated. And Paul himself was shocked by the data because he wrote the vaccine-friendly plan, and he has this, you know, 10 years of data. So he decides, well, let's just take a look. I've followed these kids for 10 years. And he finds out that the unvaccinated kids just don't get sick, period. They got nothing. He publishes the data and he loses his license, his medical license. Then we have the study that was done at Henry Ford Hospital, which I think is in Detroit. And this one, you know, they hired the best epidemiologists, all of that before it started. And they said, we're going to just do this study. And you guys do the study design so that when you get the results, you have followed all the protocols. Now they get the results. The unvaccinated are far healthier. What happens? They suppress the study because everyone in it would lose their jobs. I follow a wonderful guy named Jamie Winship, who was a cop and calls himself a militant peacekeeper. He's been over to the Middle East working with militant groups to bring more peace into the area. And he did an incredible talk called, "What Does It Look Like to Be in a Nation Where Everyone's Afraid?" What does it look like? And so the first thing that we were telling everyone is, you don't need to be afraid, which is what the Bible says. Do not be afraid. A bunch of times in the Bible, I think 180. And so what we were telling them is what to do. Vitamin D, zinc, the Zelenko protocol. You know, let's do a little. I mean, we had people who were just fine with nebulizing a little hydrogen peroxide or a little bit of Lugol solution. You know, and we had Dr. Brownstein just doing vitamin D and iodine. It was so easy. People didn't need to die. And that became, you know, I was walking in my neighborhood, you know, and it was funny, Rissa, when you were talking about how you were attacked by your own community. I mean, I'm walking in this little town in Maine, and this guy goes, "Oh, it's you. If I'd known it was you, I wouldn't have been so nice. You're the Satan of misinformation, and you're not welcome here."
Ouch.
Wow.
Another time, I'm in the Sarasota airport. This woman walks by me. She's like the classic middle-aged white liberal woman who's sort of angry with life, right? She walks by me in her mask and she goes, "You're despicable." And then later on the plane, she passes my seat and she goes, "You have blood on your hands." And that's just what you said. It's that people, susceptible people,
Yes.
just went along with it because they were convinced that we were dangerous, and that's how they do it. So I was speaking in last October, about a year ago, down in Massachusetts at a thing called the Next Steps Conference, very benign name, and I wanted to meet Joe Latipo. So I go down there, and the next thing you know, Media Matters, which is funded by the Center for the Countering of Digital Hate, runs an article that someone sent me, Hitler-loving anti-Semite speaks on the same stage as the Florida Surgeon General. And it's like, well, now I think I've got every slam that you could have. Racist, transphobic, Hitler loving, anti-Semite, transphobic. Okay, it's almost like, is there anything else? Is there anything else that you would like to say to me?
Wow.
I mean, it's like, and there's a part of me, just what you said, Rissa, which this was very comforting to me. This 12 disciple things. It's like at the Charlie Kirk Memorial, they were holding up a verse from Isaiah, which is, "Send me, Lord, send me." So, it's sort of comforting. So when I get an article like that in Media Matters, there's a part of me that goes, still got it. I mean, it's a joke to me. It's like, people, wake up. I'm a postmenopausal woman living with a couple cats. Come on.
Yeah. Wow. Well, for those who don't know, they should know that the report that was produced, the so-called Disinfo Dozen report, when they actually had Meta, Facebook give the stats through their VP of content policy, it was 0.05% of content associated with our 12 accounts. And then when there was disclosure on the internal, Facebook executive discussion about our accounts, they knew that there was no there was no support for the narrative at all. And they did it because the White House pressured them. So we have all the receipts. I mean, it's so clear what they did. They knew that it was wrong. The Surgeon General himself at the time, Vivek Murthy, now we have the emails that literally show he wanted Facebook to cover up true stories of vaccine injury and death. Like, literally, that is what is written in these emails.
Wow.
So the very people that said we were killing people with misinformation were actually killing people with misinformation. We were the ones with the missing information, the trusted 12, the deliberate 12, whatever you want to call it. They couldn't count, right? Because it was 13 with Ty and Charlene, right? I mean,
government math.
The propaganda was so extreme and absurd that's what blew my mind, is that they could simply put talking points into the executive branch of our government, like literally our president. And who are these people? They're still running free. Imran Ahmed was just in Miami, and he received a $300,000 unrestricted cash prize for being apparently this human savior to the world. Like, he's being celebrated. At the least, he's an unregistered foreign agent, right? At the very least, they did not follow FARA regulations, but he released a Black Ops memo. Black Ops, by its definition, are illegal activities. Okay, so sabotage. It could even include violence. This is what was leaked. They never denied the authenticity of that document, and yet we have our HHS secretary, who's among our group, right? He's a Disinfo Dozen member, that is being threatened. There's literally bomb threats, and he has the entire global media claiming he's dangerous, he's crazy, he's going to kill people. It's the same rhetoric. So this is why we fight. This is why we have to stand up together, because no one's going to do it but us.
Right.
Meaning the people watching this right now. So, Jared, if you have the actual it's a fundraising page link, so you can just know that that's there. There'll be links underneath the broadcast so that people can see where they can support this effort. And then also just the beginning of the lawsuit itself, it actually opens with a quote from President John F. Kennedy, which is quite beautiful. So that's the page that you can go ahead and send whatever you like. Not a penny goes to us. It just goes to the lawyers so that they can actually focus on responding to the world's most powerful corporate interests, literally $1 trillion companies. So if, it makes sense that the people have an opportunity to actually try to create some parity of arms here. Then we have the lawsuit itself, which starts with this quote. It's beautiful. I think Jared's going to pull it up. This is this is John F. Kennedy. "We are not afraid to entrust the American people with unpleasant facts, foreign ideas, alien philosophies, and competitive values. For a nation that is afraid to let its people judge the truth and falsehood in an open market is a nation that is afraid of its people. This is one reason why he was assassinated, okay? This is why Charlie was assassinated. This is why you and I and our children should not have to fear any longer, because we have the evidence. We saw how our own government was infected by foreign operatives. Call it the transatlantic deep state if you want. There are people with names, okay? There are receipts. There's a causal chain. We have the evidence. And this is not for revenge. This is restorative justice, okay? Even Vivek Murthy may have believed he did right when he essentially covered up vaccine deaths and injuries and deprived people of informed consent so they didn't have to go through those. There are those who, that could claim the guy is truly someone who was murdering people. Like, that could be said. It was said to us, but I'm going to say that I don't believe that. I do think he probably meant well on some level, and that we're not looking for blood here. All we need is to make sure the Constitution is enshrined. It's a constitutional republic. It's not tyranny of the majority. It's not, let's sacrifice this baby for the good of the whole. That's the whole socialistic democracy model they're trying to foist on us. We're standing up and saying there's not a human that's on this soil that should be penetrated against their consent with a potentially deadly intervention under the auspices of medical necessity.
That's right.
That should be the end. Yeah. So this isn't just for us. This is for our children. It's for your children. It's for our future. And that's why we're doing this. So I really hope that you can share this. You can, go ahead if you feel compelled, support this. We're supporting it. We're putting our time, energy, and our own money into this so that we can make sure that there is a chance for the future. Does anyone else want to just close in?
I have 2% on my laptop here, so if I die out, that's why. But I just want to say, for those that are listening, thank you for your support already. That's what this is about. This is for the people. As Sayer said, this is not only for our children, but it's for our children's children. And this is a case for freedom and liberty. This isn't just for us to get wealthy. This is not what this is about. This is really a case for the truth, to preserve our liberties and our freedoms. I mean, we only have the freedoms and liberties that we're willing to defend. And this is what this case is all about. This is a case for the truth, for really to prevail here, and we need your support. So please consider, pray about it. If you feel compelled to give, it would be greatly appreciated.
That's great. I want to say something here. The most dangerous people to whoever, the deep state, the demons, whatever they are, the most dangerous people are the ones who are bringing unity. From the beginning, we wanted all people to know these things. I was doing Facebook Lives with Kevin Jenkins and his wife, Gail, down in Newark, because she wanted the Black community to understand the vaccine agenda. So who do they kill? John F. Kennedy, Martin Luther King. They kill the people, and the latest, Charlie Kirk, because they're bringing together people to speak freely and to love each other at the end of it. You may disagree, but let's make sure that we come together. So the forces that are at hand are doing everything in their power to divide and conquer. And it's what they always do. We need to remember that all wars have been funded by the same people on each side. It's to keep us fighting with each other. This group, the Disinformation Dozen, has never been fighting with any other group. We are for human flourishing. We are for your health. What we are against is any forces of evil that are brainwashing you into thinking that you require their injections in order to be healthy, which turns out to be a gigantic lie since the time of smallpox. And I know it is so discombobulating to people to really look at the history of Western medicine. It's pharmakia. It is sorcery.
100%.
Yeah.
Yes, no, absolutely. Wow. Rizzo, would you?
I'll just say, as the Bible says, resist the devil and he shall flee from you. It's a nice thing that people quote, but in reality, when you truly have to fight against a system, it gets dirty, it gets rough. It may be scary to some, but the reality is those who are securing the future are preparing for it today. Those who want to have a stronger future, healthier children, because we have one of the worst report cards as it pertains to our children out of most nations on the planet, which means we have no choice but to do what needs to be done right now, really 40 years ago, but right now, so that we can have a better future. And I'm not interested in doing anything other than fighting for the freedom, justice, and equality for those who want that for the future of our people. And this satanic system is inevitably going to collapse. They know that.
Mm-hmm.
They know the people are rising. They know the people are aware. We're waking up to what's happening in millions and millions and millions. And that's why they're doing their best to try to force things in us physically now, because psychologically they had us, spiritually they had us at a certain point, emotionally and mentally, but all that is wearing off. And so now they're like, we need to physically intervene. And that's the last area that people go to in a tyrannical government, is when they want to physically shackle you because they could not control you any other way. So I don't want that to be the case anymore. As a Black man, and I make that very clear, I traveled this entire country and spoke in front of thousands all over the country about this. And if any of you believed what you heard, if any of you believed that it was of help to you, to your family, then definitely support what we are doing. Support this because it does support you. I know my companies, both Peace Pads as well as Intellectual Power, will be financially supporting this case, because this is going to help with the freedom of speech for real for everyone in this country, and even more than just the freedom of speech. It's really the freedom to live.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
Well said,
Yeah. And I will say that, take it from us, we've been through the ringer, and I will say I feel stronger, more connected, more equipped, more wanting to take on these original advocacies than before they started all this mess. So if you're on the fence, and you think that it's too scary, I can tell you that I've been rewarded spiritually so profoundly through doing this work. And I know that's true for all of us, as we take the leap and do the right thing for ourselves, our country, for our children, and for the world, because it stretches beyond nationalism here. And that's the beauty of this movement. So again, thank you, everybody. The links are below. Feel free to share this with others, and you're going to get a lot of exciting updates, because this case is just starting to heat up. So look forward to the sharing that next few months.
Great.
Thank you, Sayer. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Appreciate all of you.
Thank you
again.
so much. All right.